Are you a U.S. citizen yet? No? Then you should be. Why? Well, that's what we're about to tell you. Apply for citizenship, and this is what you'll get. Civil liberties and civil rights. What are those, you ask? Well, here's what they are. Civil liberties prevent others from infringing on your rights. Neither the government or anyone can interfere or restrain you. What about civil rights? Well, they're entitlements. They are guaranteed rights for every U.S. citizen. And how can you be sure this is protected? That's what the 14th Amendment is for. It protects all U.S. citizens, whether born or naturalized. No state will be allowed to create laws that prevent a citizen from life, liberty, and property. The best part is, everyone is equally protected. You're probably wondering what rights are going to be protected. Well, here they are. You will be guaranteed freedom of religion. Were you previously living in a country where you weren't allowed to worship as you pleased? Well, not here. According to the Establishment Clause, the government isn't allowed to create an official religion, so therefore, you wouldn't have to conform to one religion. The government isn't allowed to favor one religion over another, and they're also not allowed to favor non-religion over religion, and vice versa. So believers and non-believers, we're all equal here. Do you find prayer a form of comfort? Are your children used to praying before meals? If you send them to public school, they will have the individual freedom of choice to pray before their meal, or pray whenever they feel like it. Here's an example. In 1990, students in West Side Middle School decided to start a Bible study group. However, the school administration denied it because they did not allow a staff member to sponsor the club, because if a staff member sponsored it, they would need to be paid, and that meant they were endorsing a religion. The students said that the West Side School District's denial of their club was unfair. The court ruled that the students should be allowed to hold their meetings as long as the staff member wasn't paid. So what else does this whole freedom of religion thing give you? The Free Exercise Clause. This clause states that you are allowed to perform religious rituals. You will also have the freedom to express any religious opinion, and you will be protected under the clause. Your religious activities will also not be taxed. You will be allowed to practice any religion as long as your actions are balanced against broader social values. Such things that are already illegal by U.S. law, however, like polygamy and drug use, is not protected under this law. And if you don't believe us that you'd have the freedom to worship as you please, let us present to you a real-life court case. In 1993, the city of Hialeah, Florida, made a law that banned those practicing the Santeria religion to make animal sacrifices. However, these people found it unfair that hunters were allowed to kill for sport. The law was then deemed unconstitutional and was lifted. Another right you have is being able to express your beliefs in print. This is called freedom of the press. That means if you believe that oranges are better than lemons, you will be able to publish it and nobody will be able to refrain you from doing so. This also includes symbolic speech. This is usually spoken, done, or written, and is meant to convey a message. Some examples are sit-in protests and flag waving. However, there are some limitations. Let's take a look at this example.
You have 5 minutes? I can't believe they arrested me.
Well, that article was controversial.
But I have freedom of press.
You said the governor cheated on his wife.
I have the right to say what I believe.
But that was proven untrue.
So?
That's libel. You published a lie about someone and it ruined their reputation. That's not protected by freedom of press. Neither is slander, which is orally defaming someone's reputation, or sedition, which is planning on overthrowing the government.
Then what is freedom of press good for then?
Well, under freedom of press, no one is allowed to stop you from publishing on print what your beliefs are. If you think ostriches are better than swans, you can publish that, but you lied about someone and ruined their reputation.
I should have thought of that.
You really should have.
Time's up!
So yes, there are limitations to this freedom. As you can see, the journalist was jailed for writing lies about the governor. Libel is not protected under freedom of press. Slander. which is orally defaming someone's reputation through lies, and sedition, which is planning and overthrowing the government or supporting an enemy nation, is also not protected under freedom of press. Also, with symbolic speech, you are not allowed to destroy others' reputation through lies or to plan to commit a crime. The government also has the power of prior restraint. This is where you must obtain a permit before speaking, or where a judicial injunction would prevent certain speech. And with this, let's take a look at a court case. In 1995, Omar Abdel Rahman and his followers were convicted of seditious conspiracy. Rahman had been gaining a following and had been preaching anti-American beliefs. Rahman and his followers planned to bomb famous landmarks in New York. They were caught by an FBI informant and was charged to 25 years in prison. So now you know of your freedoms to express religion and your beliefs. Now we're going to tell you about your freedom of assembly and petition. So what is that? That is the freedom to congregate peacefully to protest grievances. This means that you and a group of people could come together to defend a common interest. Say that you and your co-workers feel that you were being treated unfairly at work.
What's going on? Why is no one working?
This is a sit-in protest.
Sit-in? Well, you better get back to work.
No, we're protesting ShopRite.
What the heck are you protesting about?
Inadequate pay.
Excuse me?
We took a survey of employees from other ShopRites in the area.
We concluded that compared to those other workers, you pay us the minimum of what we actually deserve.
I'm not gonna have this. I'm gonna call the cops. You're obstructing the peace.
They can't arrest us.
And why not?
We're not breaking any laws.
Under the freedom of assembly and petition, we are allowed to do this, since we're peaceably assembling.
We're not causing a riot. There's nothing to arrest us for.
Well, I don't care what you do. I'm not gonna raise your pay.
Then I guess we'll just sit here.
Sounds great, right? There are limitations, but only a few. Plotting to commit a crime or murder is not protected under this freedom. If you plan to protest in a public area, you must receive a permit. And of course, the protest must remain peaceful. Despite these limitations, you also get freedom of association. This means you can join with others for a cause without receiving interference. So you can join a workers' union for workers' rights. Let's look at a court case. Colorado issued a law where protesters must stay 100 feet away from abortion clinics and 8 feet away from the individuals going into the clinic. While many initially found this unfair, the court said that this did not go against the freedom of assembly and petition, since the protesters were still able to convey their message.
The evidence found against my client cannot be used.
Why not? It supports a suspicion against them.
Because you just burst into my client's house to get it.
So?
That's against the law. Under the Fourth Amendment, you are required to have a warrant to search somebody's house unless there's an obvious reasonable suspicion. It isn't like you heard gunshots or screams. You decided to search without knocking or letting my client answer the door.
What is the warrant your client holds?
Knock and announce warrant.
And your client didn't knock.
I claim the plain view doctrine.
You can only use that exception if the crime being committed is in plain view, causing obvious suspicion, which it did not.
I rule in the favor of the defendant.
In 2006, the Supreme Court managed a trial called Hudson v. Michigan. Detroit police entered Hudson's home in violation of the knock and announce rule. Hudson argued this was against the Fourth Amendment. The court allowed the evidence to be taken by Hudson to suppress. However, Hudson was convicted of drug possession. The State Court of Appeals rejected Hudson's renewal of the Fourth Amendment. This was due to reasonable and lawful search and stated the police were able to enter to search. If you were to be accused of a crime, the Fifth Amendment is an important one to know. Under the Fifth Amendment, as a U.S. citizen, you cannot go to trial for a serious crime without first being seen by a grand jury. Defendants, which would be you, cannot be trialed for the same crime by the same level of court thanks to the Jeopardy Clause. You will also be able to plead the Fifth. Pleading the Fifth protects people like you from forced self-incrimination. When a citizen mentions his or her Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, this is referred to as pleading the Fifth. If you find yourself in court, remember these two words, procedural and substantive. Procedural allows you to be notified of all charges and proceedings and gives you opportunity to respond. Substantive due process means the government may not prosecute an individual for conduct that affects certain fundamental right. The Supreme Court has said that fundamental rights include freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and the free exercise of religion. Also, be able to consider the eminent domain stated in the Magna Carta of 1215. This idea of eminent domain tells you that the government has the right of suspect to keep his property until a jury says otherwise, without having to compensate the owner of any property it takes. The Sixth Amendment gives you the right to a speedy trial and the right to know what you've been accused of. It also has the right to be confronted with the witnesses against you. The Seventh Amendment gives the right to not be tried for the same crime twice. This is also referred to as the double jeopardy, as you already know. These amendments also protect you in regards to what needs to be true for you to be convicted. In criminal trials, you must be guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. With civil trials, there needs to be enough evidence to give you the impression of guilt. The Eighth Amendment gives you benefits that are ensured with protection under the Constitution. These benefits include excessive bail shall not be required, no excessive fines shall be imposed, and no cruel and unusual punishments are inflicted upon you.